Welcome back to a Deeper Dig Conversation Series, episode 35. Man, I just want to say, first of all, like, we're shooting this at the Asian Art Museum. That in itself is already pretty crazy. But
Yes, sir.
one of the things that's so special is that today I'm here with Mark Sabb. And I mean, for me, like, I've actually connected with him on LinkedIn. But I feel like the important thing was just kind of gaining his insight on how he goes about digital content and just the importance of how we consume content and do that in a creative way. So, Mark, thank you for joining.
Thank you. I would say in a weird way, I kind of pride myself off of like a LinkedIn message or like a meeting that goes way beyond that. Like that, like I have a lot of things where people like either meet me through like some work meeting or like some LinkedIn thing, and then they're like, "Oh, actually, you're pretty dope," and I'm like, I think you're dope too, and then it goes much deeper than that. It gets to a point like this. So I would actually say in a lot of ways, like yeah, I don't know. I kind of that's one thing I pride myself on. I feel like if I could be a part of someone's day that adds to some like positive surprise or a dope conversation or meeting that could happen in the midst of a bunch of not super dope ones, then I feel like that's I'm doing something good in the world.
100%. And this actually is a perfect transition to the first question I want to ask is, how would you describe yourself as a person?
Oh man, that's such a good question. In a lot of ways, like, I mean, the first thing that I would think about is like, I'm a father, right? That's like the main thing that like drives me right now. I once saw someone say that like when they had young kids, that like what was dope about it for them was like they could wake up every day and like they automatically knew their purpose, right? Because I would say I haven't necessarily struggled with that, but like when I was before I had kids, my purpose was like art. It was creating. Like art and creating was like, I would say like throughout my whole life from when I remember one of my first memories, like early core memories, was my mom complimenting me by telling me that I was very creative. Mm-hmm. And like after she said that, like, I don't know, it like lit a spark in me. Like I thought that was like the best thing that someone could ever say about someone. And like for her to say that to me, I was a kid, like I maybe like 5 or something. And so I remember that forever. And in a lot of ways, like I was actually thinking about it earlier today, like every time my life got hard, I would just like double down on creating. Like every single hard moment I went through in my life, I would just be like, I'm just gonna make. Like sometimes it was like I would work with like musicians or like rappers and stuff like that, and like make a bunch of music videos, or I would like make a bunch of visual art, or I would just try different things. And I just realized, like, for me, a long time in my life, I felt like my purpose was to like create and to add to the world creatively, to be a part of just the whole, deep legacy of like making art and, being, whatever, all these different things. But then I would say, like, once I became a father, my purpose became my kids, you know what I mean? And like, what was dope about that is like, it's the first time I think I really was like being extremely selfless, right? Like I think a lot of creative have this problem, but actually, like I would say, like I've always had this issue where like I wouldn't always understand how my actions impacted other people. Right, like in theory, huge. I knew it was true, right? Like, or things would happen, and I actually got lucky. Like, there are probably like a couple of times in my life where like things like where I've done something or made like a decision, or maybe I haven't made a bad decision or something, and like it could have impacted other people, but it like didn't really, right? And like, or like, like whatever, like it just missed them, or like whatever was going on. And then like, and so I would realize like, oh man, if that had went as bad as it could, like other people could have been impacted by that, right? But it never got that bad, I was lucky in that way. But when I had kids, like I really realized, like you really start to see, like you really get to understand, like everything that I do now will impact this person, and not only everything I do, but everything I don't do, right? Yeah. So like I would say like that's how I think I like center and understand myself now. Definitely, like, I mean, like art and creativity is still like core to who I am. But I would say what's really dope is like when I wake up in the morning, I know like the first thing I'm thinking about, the first people I'm thinking, like I know what I'm doing, and like at the end of the day, like I know who I'm working for, I know what I'm working for, and it's bigger than me, you know. And I think like in a lot of ways, once I started to see that with my kids in my own house, then I started to see that like in everything, right? Like I started to realize like the work I do here at the museum is bigger than me. The work that I do with Felt Zine is bigger than me. Like in a lot of ways, like I think like I understood that idea in the abstract, but like now I really deeply understand it as like a core part of like how everything sort of comes together, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what's so beautiful about that, Phil? I think being, obviously I can't say anything about being a father, but I do notice how when there's different inspirations across like creativity, is usually centered around family, because I find that. So for you, like how much of being a father and just being around family and having loved ones is an impact towards the work that you do?
Man, it's a huge impact. But I would say even before being a father, like so much of the art that I made was inspired by experiences that I had because of my family, right? And like I would find myself like thinking about something or like going to create something and being like, and even having conversation with myself and being like, oh, I remember like growing up. So like for instance, right? Like I grew up in a very musical family. Like on both sides of my family, like basically like all of my uncles either rap or sing, right? And then and like some of them have had like real record deals and like put stuff out, like, and especially in like New York, they're like family members are like a big part of like especially like the underground rap scene and stuff like that. And so like and even growing up in New York, at the time when I grew up in New York, like it, like for instance, like rap music and hip hop was like a core part of our identity. But then also, like simultaneously, like my mom and my aunts are like super into like house music, right?
Oh, house music is huge.
That's
huge.
Yeah. So like that's what I mean. Like even shaping like I think like my identity of like the art and the aesthetics that I was driven to, like a lot of that comes from like early influences from family, you know. Like I even remember like I remember one time I was like, you know, talking to like my uncles about this thing. It was like maybe when I was like a teenager or something, and they were like, yo, like you know, like what you connect with a lot of times, like it comes from like those early memories you have, like almost subconsciously. Like a lot of times, like I ride around with my kids. Like sometimes we're like listening to like kids music, but a lot of times like I'm just playing what I like to listen to, right? And so like even subconsciously, like they're gonna connect with hip hop, right? Just because of like the things that like I'm playing around them before they could even start to like think or form ideas. And a lot of them are playing like experimental underground hip hop. And so like that sort of shapes where you go. And like that's a lot of what I was raised on, right? It's like so I think you start to see those things. Like for instance, like a lot of people in my family, especially in my generation, like I think it's interesting because like there's always been a lot of creatives in my family, but I would say I'm part of like the first generation that like really consider themselves artists, right? So you have a lot of people in my family who are like singers or like dancers, but like they wouldn't necessarily like call themselves artists. But like me and my cousins and stuff like that, like we're like, no, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, right? And then I have these mediums I work with. So I think one, like that's the thing, you start to see this sort of like evolution over generations. But then the interesting thing about that is like all of us are very like almost like alternative or underground or like very creative in the ways that we approach things. Like none of us are like mainstream artists, like in the ways that we create things, right? And so I even think like that's mad interesting because like even ones that like they grew up, like some of them grew up in like some of them grew up in like Canada, so they like or like just different parts, or like even if we're like a couple generations away, it's like we all sort of fall into these things, like, right? Like now I'm seeing like my little cousin, like, you know, kids who were born when like I was like 10, 13 or something, like now they're making beats and like I'm like, oh, this sounds like an Earl Sweatshirt beat. You know what I'm saying? But like I didn't grow up in their house though, right? It's like, but we all sort of like the same way that I would be like, you know, like when I was young, I would try to make like beats that sound like Madlib or J Dilla, right? Like now, but like I see like, oh wow, in this new generation of what is, they create like that, right? Like, so it's like, and that's what's super interesting is like even if we're not exactly the same, like there's certain types of like aesthetics and vibes that we fall into are like mad similar. Like I have a cousin who's like who's a dancer, and like she's like super similar. The type of dance that she does is like, it's like she's like a B girl, you know what I'm saying? It's like all of us just fell into these things that are like it's interesting. It's like something in us like it's almost like we're almost like genetically predisposed to be on some like, you know, cult art like underground type wave, you know what I mean? And I think like that's like pretty interesting too, like in the ways that, you know, you might be conscious of the ways your family, you know, impacts you, but then there's other ways where it just happens, you know? It's like our family just creates this environment where like something like a Felt Zine would come out of, or something like that. Like a lot of that just happened, you know?
Yeah, and I find that like when people give themselves like the title creative, I find that to be like more of like something that we've grown to accept to. Because I'm pretty sure like if it was like in like the 80s or maybe early 90s, you wouldn't necessarily be calling yourself a creative, because you kind of need like, oh man, like what makes you a creative? Like, do you have experience? Do you have rank? Nowadays, people can just go in and record content and do social media and be a creative. And I'm 100% with that. I do think the important thing about being creative is the impact that carries, not necessarily from like an audience aspect, but from more like a personal aspect. Which
I agree with that.
Kind of transitions to me asking you about Felt Zine. Like, what was the start of it, and like, what was the purpose of it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Felt Zine actually, it started out as a fashion magazine. So around that time, I had actually just got. So this was in like, gosh, this must have been around like 2010, or I think Felt Zine either officially launched and like. I think officially it was 2011, but it was like either like late 2010, early 2011.
2010 was such a weird time for fashion too.
Yes.
Especially in NBA.
Yes.
The little glasses with the 3D like glasses. Oh God.
But I was contributing and working on another fashion magazine that I had actually got fired from. But I got fired from it because I just kept coming with these like ideas that they just like weren't vibing with. And it was stuff that like a lot of what Felt Zine is today, where I was like, yo, we're talking about fashion, but like, what about the ways that fashion connects to art? And then what about the ways it connects to like digital art and like 3D rendering and stuff? And like at that time, like people were not vibing with it. Like, and yeah, I was just like, I was literally going into me, and people were just looking at me like, yo, like, get this guy out of here. Like, he is not, like, this is like a waste of time. So it's funny because the founder of that magazine, in a lot of ways, like, I give him a lot of credit because, like, he was super ahead of his time in the ways that I think he brought a lot of young people together to just sort of like create an online publication. Anyway, I got kicked out because I was wilding a little bit too much for them, and you know, I kind of like, you know, me and like my homies at the time who I'm still like super close with. So then I'm sure they're gonna watch and listen to this. So like, shout out to Lou, shout out to Dev, and my wife Xiaoding. Like we're all still close, like best friends today. Like literally all of us are like best friends today still. I don't know. I just kind of looked around the table and I was like, yo, we could just do this ourselves. Let's just make a fashion magazine ourselves. Funny thing is, we started to do it. We were working on like our first issue. In the midst of that, I was going to college at UNC Chapel Hill at the time, and around that same time in North Carolina, well, it was actually happening everywhere online. But there was this like music. It's a music genre, but I would also call it a movement called vaporwave. And this whole movement, like, basically, like, while it was all online, and like C-punk, there's a bunch of other like genres, like early 2010s genres that are related to it. But while this was popping online, actually, it just so happened that like a lot of people who were like becoming like super popping for making this music were like lived in North Carolina, but they lived in like the mountains and shit in North Carolina. So like so we would just go to like their events and stuff, and I would see like the whole thing about it is like the aesthetic is actually a lot of what kind of created like the groundwork and like the kind of like base aesthetic for what is like the kind of like 3D art, not in a ways like even like AI art aesthetics now, like things that sort of like drew in like Adult Swim aesthetics, but like, you know, 3D renderings of like Greek statues and like an ocean or something like that, or like, you know, all gold like dolphins or something rendered with like free 3D programs, right? Like this is when that whole aesthetic was starting, and I was seeing people who were making these album covers, and I was like, yo, like this whole art language, this whole art style is fire. And then I found out they were making it basically using like all these free 3D programs. And I just was like, yo, this is like I basically at that point was like, yo, we should really like just like the fashion stuff is dope. Let's keep that as a part of it. But like, let's focus on this movement. Like all of these people who are making these covers, like this is art. And like I felt like at the time there was no one else who was gonna like cover that scene and champion that scene if it wasn't us, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically how we got started, and that's how we got our entry into digital art, and like specifically like what we call net art, and it's kind of dope in a way because like we went from being like people who were just like championing this kind of like weird kind of style of art that people weren't paying attention to, and then over time, that became like a whole new generation and a whole new wave of like of art and aesthetics that went on to like influence a bunch of things. So you know, so that's basically how it came about. It came about like super organically, where it was just like I you know, we felt the passion for something, and then they embraced us, right? The artists who were creating embraced us. We learned how to make that art too, so we started contributing to the movement in a lot of ways. Like some of the oldest like pieces you'll probably find on Felt Zine are literally like old vaporwave music videos and stuff like that. So we started supporting the scene. We became creators in it, and then we, you know, we started working with galleries to show art. Started working with museums. But I would say like in general, like that's kind of like a story of my life. Like I think like I know he's super canceled, so I whatever, but it's just the truth. Like, it was like music and hip hop, I was a huge fan of that. Then people like Kanye and Pharrell became like huge gateways into fashion, right? Especially for people in my generation. Then that gateway from fashion led me to be like, oh, there's a whole other level that's like the art world, right? And then I really want to be like a part of that. So that's what. So it's like that evolution also happened along with me, like, you know, creating, right? Like, I mean, you know, like growing up, I sort of knew there was this vague idea of like museums and galleries and stuff like that, but it was actually through like the ways that like, you know, rap music and rap culture became embedded in fashion, that even opened up that door for me. Because I was always like, yo, like fashion is dope. I was like, I feel like there's like another deeper source of inspiration. Like, what else are people on? And then, you know, you learn about people like Cause, or like start following like, you know, Nigo from Bape or something. And then I would see online like, oh, he has this gallery show in Japan. It's like, oh, what is that? Like, what does that even mean? And it just, so that was kind of like my route into like all of it. And then like digital, it's wild at the same time because like digital art just like it's something that's always been a part of me in a lot of ways. Like, but like I think I'm like the way that I think about digital art though is much more like expansive than other people do. Like for instance, like I think electronic music and even hip hop today, like I think about that as digital art, right? Because think about it, right? Like if somebody makes a painting with like a canvas and paint, that's a painting. If somebody makes a painting with their iPad, that's digital art.
Yeah.
So if I make a beat with an iPad, why is that not digital art? Right. Yeah. So like my whole perception of like what I even, so like that's even with that, like I grew up where like I would see my uncles and stuff like making music on the computer, and then I was just like, can I pirate? Like I would just pirate like Photoshop and then start making stuff, right? Yeah. So it's like my whole way of thinking and creating has always been digital first. And I've always thought about the idea of like, yo, if you're creating using some digital interface, you're making digital art.
Yeah, and one of the things that I feel like is definitely like inspiring about all that, especially like I would say in 2010s, they just didn't accept the fact that intersection was gonna play such a major key role. And now, like, you see how people are trying to incorporate intersection today, and also appreciate intersection. Like Aphex Twin is one of the major ones. You know, like that whole concept of intersection with music, but also like you mentioned Kanye and Pharrell. And one of the things that made their work so impactful is like that whole intersection of fashion and just even like experimenting with artists, like Kanye doing work with an independent artist in Bon Iver, right? That's something that is unexpected, but at the same time, like it carries the art that much more forward. And one of the things I'm really curious about is, so you ended up at the Asian Art Museum. How did that opportunity come to play?
Oh man, so the crazy thing is like basically every job that I've had has been at a museum since I've been like 19 or something like that.
That's crazy.
So like I pretty much like really either I was basically working online making content, or like I wrote for like a lot of I used to write for like a lot of like streetwear and sneaker websites back in like 2008, 2009.
Was it like freelance or just doing it?
So that was like, those were like my first real jobs, were just like, I would just like, you know, do blogging online for like different, there used to be like a lot of, like, that's how news about like shoes that were dropping or like exclusive collabs and stuff used to come out. It used to be through blogs, right? So I used to do a bunch of like writing for around like sneakers and streetwear. Then that was like my super early on, like high school and stuff like that. Then basically got to college, started working at the museum there. And then ever since then, I pretty much worked at museums. And what I've always been focused on are the ways that like, really the ways that like technology, but also like content creation, even before that was really the word, shows up in museums, right? And so like my life has kind of always been a balance of those. The crazy thing about it is like, I would do a lot of Felt Zine projects as like an example of what of like almost like to test out like very experimental ideas that I thought like I could bring to like a museum later.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And one of the things about experimentation is how it kind of transitions across different mediums. And we were talking about this off camera, like what I'm starting to find now that's starting to become more trendy is brain rot. And how do you feel about brain rot?
Yes, exactly. So brain rot is like one of the perfect things, right? Because like with Felt Zine, like we purely embrace like brain rot and memes, right? But then like now because of that, right? Like if you, for instance, like if you follow like Asian Art Museum, like we recently did something where it was like your month as like a Japanese ceramic or something, like just things you would never like really expect the museum to do, right? But the fact that I've done it and had success with Felt Zine doing it gives me a lot more leeway to like play out these ideas at like a space like a museum, right?
Yeah, because you already done it.
Exactly. I've already done it. I've seen it work. And so if somebody questions it, it's like, nah, like trust me, this works here. Honestly, like I embrace things like brain rot. Like I grew up off Adult Swim. So it's like for me,
that's what's up.
For me, it's like, yo, like that's like my comfort zone in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like
I kind of miss the old Adult Swim. Like nowadays, like I will say some of the good Adult Swims that are coming out now, like Smiling Friends is definitely like starting to become a big one. But I just wish I was born during the prime times of like South Park, Family Guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, you know, there's like to me, like my, like, you know, a highlight of my nights was like, what weird, crazy commercial is going to come on Adult Swim? And then it's like, am I going to see that again? Like what was that, right?
Like a bumper.
Yes, the bumpers.
And even Toonami bumpers.
That's what I'm saying, right? So like that whole, like, I try to bring that to what I do now here, right? So like that's the that's sort of like the big idea of it, right? So like how I get here, it's just working in museums a long time. I will say like it's been a long road though, because like in a lot of ways, like for instance, like I would work in like marketing departments for a long time because there wasn't a big space for digital in museums when I was first starting out, right? So like what's kind of cool is like I've seen the industry shift, and like I'm also proud in a way because like I know that like contributions from like people like me have also helped to like open up this space where like museums respect the idea of like content more, right?
Yeah.
Like in a lot of ways, like there is this natural like battle between art and content, right? But and especially for older generations, I think younger generations don't see it like that, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah, and I think like I'm part of the group of people that help to sort of change and show that, right?
Yeah.
That actually artists can learn a lot from the content creators. And actually like we should probably stop having such a hard dividing line between the two, because like when it comes down to it, we're all posting.
Yeah,
You know
we're all content
posting,
creators, and at the same time with the content creators like Kai, Speed, like they're showing why the work that they do carries impact, which I feel like is so needed. Like, and particularly with like the experimentalists, like how do you manage to just kind of keep balance with the brand? Because I feel like one of the things that's so hard about being experimental is, yeah, you got to have the people that understand it, but also at the same time, you got to have like the sense of like having that kind of carry out the identity. So for you, how do you like kind of balance that out?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I would say, and sometimes this gets me in trouble. Brand identity is important, but what's more important is like really good content and really good art. So at the end of the day, like everything becomes secondary to that. And the dope thing is really strong branding can help make really good content, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't believe in just breaking rules to break them. That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, like you shouldn't just follow rules to follow them either, right? So I think that's actually the balance. It takes a bit of like, in some sense, it's kind of like curation. It's a judgment call, but like, like people get bored really quickly with like brand assets or brand productions that just feel like they're on brand, right?
It's
like,
a short attention span.
Yeah. Like for instance, right? Like let's say even like one of the dopest brands. Let's take like A24. There's a way that I could make like a parody of an A24 movie if I just say like, oh, this is what their branding looks like. This is what they usually do. This is how they usually shoot things, and I could make them look silly, right? Yeah. But the thing that's dope about like the dopest A24 movies are the ones that are like, oh, like I get that this is their vibe, but then this feels different, right? Like,
do any films come to mind?
Oh gosh, I
saw the Smashing Pumpkin this weekend. Smashing Machine.
Yeah. So even something like that, right? The ways that it captures you, where you're like, yo, I'm excited that A24 is doing this. Part of it is like, yes, they bring you in with something that feels familiar, but then they surprise you, right? You got to have that element of surprise, and that element of surprise 9 times out of 10 is going outside of the brand guidelines, right?
It's even the curation too. Like if you really think about it, like the element of surprise, and just to add on that, I think the element of surprise is so important because like who would have expected that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's performance in The Smashing Machine would be like arguably the best of his career. And it took A24 and Benny Safdie to really push that.
That's exactly. And like on paper, even that collaboration like doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, but that's what makes it work. That's what makes it interesting. Or we could even, whatever. You could say like, like there's so many. Brad Pitt in Inglourious Basterds, right?
Yeah.
Like on paper, it's like, why am I putting Brad Pitt in this movie about like, Jewish renegades in World War II, like this like crazy alternative history piece, right? But it like when you see it like that, but that's why it works, right? That's why it's so dope.
You can even do Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Or freaking like Jamie Foxx and Django, right?
Jamie Foxx and Django, Matthew McConaughey and Interstellar.
That's what I'm saying. Like all these things, like it shouldn't work, but that's why it works, right?
Exactly.
So if you're following what you're supposed to be doing, you might not make that choice. You might not make that decision, but like that's also what makes things dope a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean is like, so that's how I find that balance a lot. And then the truth is like, if it's dope, people just accept it. And then if it's dope and then it performs well, then you won.
That's where you reach legendary status.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So like I think that's what I try to go for a lot of times. I just try to like I said, do I give, art directors and creative directors a little bit of a headache sometimes. Yeah, but I'm coming from a real place, and I'm coming from a place. I'm also coming from a collaborative place, right? I'm not coming from an adversarial place. I'm coming from a place of like, no, I feel you. I respect that. I still have our logo in the corner there. I'm just getting funky over here a little bit, right? And I think they, you know, and over time people come to respect that.
Yeah.
And I think others also find the fun in the creative process in that.
Exactly. One of the things I'm curious about is, give me like a bold take that you see out of like social media or anything related to digital media that is like underlooked. I am beyond curious.
Oh man, oh my gosh, that's such a hard question. Okay. I have a little bit of a bold take. I don't think this is going to be a bold take in a few years, but I will say that AI generated content can be just as creative as anything else, right? And the reason why I say that is because, like, is there a lot of slop? Yes. But, well, there's two things. One, like, there's a long history of people taking art mediums that have been looked at as like slop, or like, you know, like the art medium of graphic novels and comic books was seen as like kids trash for a long time, or like Pulp Fiction, right? Or even the same 3D art that people now, like the ways that people treat a lot of AI generated art now is the ways that people were treating a lot of like 3D like art for a long time, right? 3D experimental art for a long time. I remember one time, this was in like, this was like early like 2010s. Remember one time I went to a party and one of my friends was, you know, we were just chilling at this bar or something like that. It was some spot in Oakland, and he had said to somebody like, "Oh, you should know them. Like they make like really dope like 3D art and like net art." And this person replied, and they were like, "Oh, isn't that just like art that's like a puppy smoking a bong on a couch?" And I was like, yo, like that's wild. But like I think like, but like now, like no one would have like that sort of response or perception. Like there's some of this art that's like in museums now. So I think like that will be the natural progression that happens for people that are creating an AI, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about like displacing anyone or anything like that at all. I think anyone who's creating with the intention of replacing people using AI, ultimately that's not gonna last. That's always gonna feel soulless, right?
Yeah.
But they're gonna naturally be creators, especially as younger creators become older, who just look at that as their means of creation, and they're gonna do like interesting experimental work with it that's gonna feel incredibly human, right?
Yeah. And I will say, I feel like the reason why AI art is so like, you know, outvoted right now is because we just don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
And I think like the thing that's important about AI art, for me, I'm someone that I wouldn't necessarily say like disapproves of it, but I can tell when something AI art. But at the same time, for me, I'm always like valuing the creative into like, you know, do I think learning AI art is important? Yes, I do. I think learning it, you don't necessarily have to instill it into your workflow, but I do believe that like having a knowledge about it and understanding it, so that way you can utilize it as well. It just gives you like another tool in the tool shed.
Oh, facts.
But
facts.
I just think like right now we're just in a stage where it's not necessarily understandable, and because and you probably already noticed, when people don't understand something creatively, they're not going to approve of it.
Exactly. Then I mean. Like it was like I know this isn't from Nas, but I know it's from Nas saying this, but it's like people fear what they can't understand, hate what they can't conquer. Guess it's just the theory of man.
Was that
right?
from Illmatic? Illmatic?
I
think that might have been from Illmatic. Maybe.
Yeah, but that's just what it is, right? It's like that is how it goes. It's like, yo, like if like I don't understand it, I feel like it's having this control over humans that we can't control it. So it's not in a good place, right? And like I'm not even overly advocating for it. I'm just saying that like I think I always look for that. I always look for that in culture, period. Like and I would say like the same thing was true for like streaming for so long, right? Like people were just like, yo, streaming is for nerds. Streaming is corny, right? Now you got like rappers pulling up to like Playboy Max's stream and like recording, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like real
exactly.
rappers, right? Like street rappers who are like on streams now making songs. Like that's the thing, is like anything that's looked at as like corny, anything that's looked at as like slop or something that people would disregard, that's probably actually where the most like artistic frontier is coming. That's what
Yeah.
history tells us. It's like whatever we disrespect, that's
Yeah.
what we come to embrace.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I'm also am thinking about, like we're currently like living in SF, right? And we see how like the use of like digital and AI is being utilized on like a daily basis. Like I find myself whenever I like go to Euroborough, like almost every week there's like an event catered for AI.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm curious about is like living out here in San Francisco, how much of that plays an influence into your work? Just because I know like with
Oh, man.
SF or like
Yeah.
it's very tech based and it's like arguably top in the world as far as like technology and stuff like that. So how much does that go into your work?
I mean, I think it does. Like, I mean, I think like there are ways that I'm like, there are ways I'm both inspired by it and like opposed to it, right? Like one of the things, like I'm not a fan of like any technology evangelism, right? Like I've done very huge crypto art projects and like, but I'm against anyone who's going to tell you that like crypto is the best thing that's ever happened to the world and it's going to change the world. Same with like AI. Like I actually think I think that like people overblow the impact that AI is going to have. And I think people also like people who are super in fear of it. I'm like, you know, like, like if you listen, there's one of my favorite albums of all time is Most Def's Black on Both Sides. And in
That's
it,
a great album.
yeah, and on the intro, he's talking about it. And, you know, he basically says like, you know, he basically starts talking about the ways that like, he starts actually talking about like super surveillance. And he's like, you know, they want me to have some fear in my heart, like to be, you know, threatened by the things that they do. But like, it's like, I don't believe in that. Right. Like, and that's the thing about it. It's like, I don't like you're not going to scare me, but at the same time, you're also not going to make me believe that there's some amazing utopia from tech either.
Yeah.
And so like, I think in a lot of ways, like, sometimes, especially because of what I do at Felt Zine, because of my job here, like people expect me to be this like big tech evangelist or some like big futurist. In a way, like I would say like, I'm like that in a sense where like, I don't like play too deeply into nostalgia. Like I like things that feel new. I like to keep things moving forward. I like to, but I'm actually about like what's happening now. Like I very much think it's important to like be in the moment, understand your moment, understand the context of everything you're doing. History is important, but like the future is just as important as the past. And actually, you could honestly disregard all that and just think about like now. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, because then that emphasizes how important timing is. And timing is hard because like either you got it right or you didn't.
Yeah.
You know? And like that's one of the things that's like timing is everything. And like so that's what I mean. So like in the ways like I think like yes, the Bay Area inspires me, but a lot of times like I'm also inspired by like not drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Like I'm also inspired by being like, yeah, like I understand these technologies deeply. You know what I mean? Like I know how to program. I know how to like make like very complex, especially when it comes to creative coding and stuff like that. Like I could, you know, I mean, in a lot of ways, like there are times where I'm working on things and I'm actually like impressed with like my own levels of technicality, especially being someone who's self-taught. But at the same time, like I pride myself in like not thinking that like that's the most important thing or that's the only way to create, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is like actually like I think I'm inspired by it. Yes, I'm like really inspired by like just the people that you could meet at like a dinner party here or something. Like it's really dope. Like you know, I found myself like meeting like the founder of like Shazam, and I was like, bro, it's crazy. Like I literally just like I was listening to like a BFB the Pac-Man freestyle yesterday. I was trying to figure out if that song was on streaming. I literally was using Shazam like on the way here, like
That's
trying to figure out. And then I met him and it was
crazy.
like, yo, that's fire. Like that only happens in like the Bay Area where you sort of have that mix of people who have had those, you know, created those things that have impacted the world. Like I know somebody who was like one of the who actually is on the patent for like the original like homepage of the iPhone, right? So
Oh,
just the way
yeah.
that it look, like it's like that, like that's crazy. So to meet people like that, you could just meet people like that in the Bay Area, right? That's super dope. Like I am inspired by that. But at the same time, like if people say that, like, but I also recognize that phones are hella dangerous. Like I'm always using my AirPods, and my wife is like, "Bro, that's like radiation." You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to use like the wire joints again. So it's like those same ways that I recognize like these things are really dope and like change the world. Like yes, but they're also like they also do harm, right?
Yeah.
So like I try to find that balance and be real about it. And I think that that's important, right? Like I
find myself definitely like having the Bay Area as an inspiration, but finding myself going outside of just your typical San Francisco. Like I kid you not. So last weekend I was in Mill Valley, right?
Ooh.
I just needed like a day trip, just a break from it all. And you know, I had the opportunity of going to a film festival and checked out 2 great films. They haven't been released yet, but one of the things that was so important for me was just kind of getting rooted into exploring other outside cities and just kind of like taking those inspirations with me into the work that I do. Because I know like for me, I get inspired by the city every day. Like, I don't know, I can go to like the Asian Art Museum, I can go to, you know, the Young Golden Gate Park and just find different ways of getting inspired. For me, maybe it's the space, maybe it's just the environment, maybe it's the overall energy. It's probably all 3. But I find myself getting inspired across various things all going on at once. But I feel like what is kind of challenging sometimes is how like we can kind of get consumed by what's going on right now.
Oh yeah.
Like we're getting consumed by like, oh yeah, like we need to be on top of this or else we have FOMO.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I'm like so similar to what you said, like for instance, like me and my family, like we'll go down to like Palm Springs area and just like spend a bunch of time in like Joshua Tree out there. Like even me and my homies have gone out and just done that trip. Like I'm huge on that. Like I love the desert. Like I'm super inspired by the desert. So sometimes I even just need to go southwest. Like I love like New Mexico, Arizona area. Like
you've been ATVing?
Yeah, well, yes.
Oh,
I've done that too.
no.
Yeah.
I have not been ATVing, but I know that's crazy.
And actually, we did it in like the dunes. It was like pretty wild. Like I love the desert area. So like sometimes when I really need to get away, I'll do that. But also, no. I mean, I agree, man. Also, like it's crazy because like when I go out to places like that, I find myself like one of the things that being in the city is hard. Sometimes things are moving so fast. You just see something, you bounce from inspiration to inspiration, and it's dope. But sometimes, like I personally find it hard to like finish a thought. Like I find myself thinking about one thing, and then something else catches your eye. You start thinking about that.
Yeah.
And what's dope is like when you're able to get outside of that, like I find myself able to actually follow like a full thought pattern. And like even that in itself is so powerful to like start a thought and then it leads you to another one and it leads you to another one. And like, but the sequence of it is so clear that you find yourself being like, wow, I handled that situation, right? Versus like sometimes when you're in the city, things start moving so much and like you find yourself being like, sidetracked, stimulated, yes, but it's like, but what am I actually making progress? Am I actually moving on the things I want to?
That's
and like you might not be. You can find yourself mad busy, but not have completed anything.
Yeah,
right? And like
no,
that happens.
That's so huge. I want to ask you this final question.
Okay.
So let's just say you have someone that is a bit younger. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to find a route. They're trying to get into the same path that you're trying to get on. Mm-hmm. What would be some like words of wisdom that you have for them?
I would say create. Like just like first of all, just create. Just make things for the sake of making them, right? Like there's a philosopher named Vivek who basically says that like potentially like the point of life is actually just the act of creation. Like not creating to win an award, not even creating to post things, not even creating to do anything else, but just to create. And I think that like that has really guided me throughout my life, right? So like even on like I'm sort of moving into this space in my life where I'm finding that like actually what I can provide for like the world is kind of like less of being a creative and kind of more so like supporting other creatives. So like I'm finding that like having my background as like an artist makes me like actually like really effective as like an executive producer of things, right? Especially here at the museum. And now it's like super interesting for me because I'm so used to being a creative or being the creative or being a big part of the creative that like I've actually learned like actually like now I'm actually someone who like has the resources, can place them places, and it's actually more important for me to implement like give those to others and help them implement their visions on like on a bigger stage or give them things like I've had a few like one of the big things that one of the models that I look at a lot is like when I did this collaboration with Givenchy, they let me be who I was, right? Yeah. Like they really embraced like the most radical side of my creativity. And it really, it changed my life, right? It changed my life because it made me see that like it showed me how to do that in an institution, right? Yeah. And the way that they treated me in that collaboration, I try to do that for everyone who's on my team here and every collaboration that we also work on. So whenever we work with a director, whenever we work with anybody who's doing anything creative for us, I try to bring out the most like maximum radical side of themselves, right? Because I think like that's sort of like the dopest thing that like we could do as a museum to support them, given that we're a museum, given our platform. And so I say to say that's been my evolution, right? But at the end of the day, like on my LinkedIn, the first thing that's there is digital artist. And I actually think it's important that I'm an artist who's working in this space, right? Like I identify as an artist and like, yeah, I'm a museum professional. Yes, I'm a museum director, all those things. But my core is being an artist. My core is being a content creator. My core is being a creative. And I think that's important because I bring that lens into every single conversation that I have, whether it's sticking up for a creative and their vision or if I'm in a room with like no creatives and it's just like a meeting with like execs and directors, being a voice for the creatives, right? Like understanding like, yo, I have a seat at this table. I'm a creative. On top of that, I'm a creative of color. All of these things, all of these intersections are like extremely important. And I have a seat here. Yeah. I'm going to represent this, right? Because like there's not enough of us in any of those, right? There's not enough of us who get to do this. And so like that's what I would say. And I would say, but the core of what I do, is creating, yes. Right? It's at the end of the day, it's all about creating. So I would inspire anyone, just create. Like I said, anytime, all the hardest points in my life, I just created, and I didn't stop. And like when things get hard, the first thing I think about doing is creating. I would say even to the point of what I said, like my evolution of sort of becoming more of an executive producer, that came from the space of, like I had a moment where I was here and I was like, I really like what I do at this museum, but like, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to grow? And I realized, oh, I want to produce more content here. I want to make more content. I want to make bigger content. I want to make a bigger wave. I don't have the time to make all that myself. Let me empower others. What does that look like? So it's still creating, right? And that's the thing. I think once like just creating is a part of what you do naturally every day, that doesn't leave you. And you might find yourself in a position somewhere. It might be a job that you like. It might be a job that you don't. But if you can just make it a part of your like DNA, make it like a habit, like brushing your teeth every night to create, then you still have that. You have ownership of that, and you will find that you can apply that to whatever you're doing somehow, just because it's so much of a part of you. Like nobody can hold that back.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much. I mean, for me, I get inspired by so much what you do. And, you know, for me, I'm constantly growing, especially with the age I'm at. And it was a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, I'm growing and learning too, man. That's what I'm doing mostly. Like, you ask anybody who talks to me here, they ask me like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? I'm like, yo, like, I'm learning. So you're constantly learning. I think a real creative is constantly also a student, right?
Yes.
So I love that.
Thank you.